Have you ever wanted to be the first to know if aliens really exist? Well, with Nebula, you can be! Nebula is the streaming service that's home to It's Probably Not Aliens, as well as our YouTube channels. And the best part? All of our content goes up early on Nebula. So when we break first contact with ET, you'll be the first to find out. That's right, you'll be able to listen to the next episode of this show before anyone else. Plus, we post bonus content that you won't find any other place. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and be the first to know if this time it really is aliens.
Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, first thing I need is a sound of a retro bulletin ushered by spacey futuristic tones. Can you do that for me? And now, folks, gather around your holographic sets, for it's time to tune into the cosmic waves. Welcome to the one and only station transmitting from the far side of Betelgeuse, the Galactic Gazette Interstellar Bulletin, zapping you the zaniest from every crevice of the cosmos. Echo straight into your funny bone. Ooh. I, your host. See, we can't introduce ourselves too early. That's not what we do on this podcast.
Yeah, we have to do at least a 10-minute digression about a movie or something.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. I'm going to cut around this part. We are ready to entertain your auditory orbits with tall tales as bright as a supernova and as buoyantly bizarre as a helium balloon planet. Is that a thing? A helium balloon planet?
I don't think so.
All right.
It's a math equation.
Everything here is kosher, folks. Nope, that doesn't mean we serve space locks from Sirius. What are they talking about? This is bad. But our news is star certified. We deal in the real space deal. What?
God damn.
Where truth is stranger than science fiction, and aliens wouldn't trade the game quadrant for Las Vegas. Game quadrant.
What is this thing?
I don't know. It's almost done. So perk up those antennae, polish your how do you say this word?
Proboscis?
Proboscises. So perk up those antennae, polish your proboscises, and prepare for some interstellar intrigue that's sure to cause ripple in your space-time continuum. Ooh. And remember, when life's got you feeling like a beaten-down quark, let Galactic Gazette bring the universal humor that will help you escape your gravity well. So, here we go. And then I need you to do another, background noise. Multi-note. Is this a pun? Multi-note? Is that a space thing? I don't know. Note the gravity of the situation. We are light years away from boredom. I like that. And re-entry into jocularity starts in 3, 2, 1. So we did ask ChatGPT to write us an intro for this one, and I did ask it to fill it with lots of space puns, and I don't get a lot of them, so that's on.
Remember when we used to start shows with germane to the topic ChatGPT poetry? We did it twice.
Yes, we did it twice, and we wanted to know if people liked it, and I don't think we got a single comment, positive or negative, about it. People were just like, it exists.
It definitely happened. Hi, everybody.
Hey, what was that about?
Yeah.
Why did we do that?
This is a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens, the show where we talk about ancient astronaut theory, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, UFOs, UAPs, and be all skeptical and shit about it. My name is Tristan, and I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by Scott.
Me. Hello. My name is Scott Nicewander. I'm the one who knows nothing. I did type a chat intro, and it did tell me that my name is actually not Scott Nicewander. My name is Sir Orion Orion. Like Orion's belt, and then Orion as in O apostrophe Ryan. So my name is Sir Orion Orion.
That's a pretty good name.
And I don't know why they put Sir in there, but I'll take it. Yeah.
There's definitely like silly science fiction RPG campaign that definitely is going to have an NPC with that name, Sir Orion. I feel like that's a good
it probably
name.
Already exists, and that's where they scraped that name from.
Maybe.
Online.
It's a bit more sophisticated than that, but still, yeah, it could be. Today is a little bit of a different thing. We'll see how it plays out in the sticks.
Level with me. If you're questioning why we did that weird intro, Tristan is about to explain.
Yeah, today we're doing a new sort of podcast within a podcast called the Galactic Gazette, which is because as we do a bunch of subjects, this is almost like the spiritual successor to Grab Bag episodes. But as we're talking about all these subjects and going into these deep dives into history, a couple things have been happening. One, we get news stories because right now UAP phenomenons and UFOs and pseudo-history and pseudo-archaeology happens all the time. And I get messages from people telling me about news stories, and some of them are worthy of full episodes where we go deep into a subject, but some of them are like, that's funny, so that we should mention that. And of course, also to kind of glom onto this, there are also topics that I come across where I realize that there is a story there, but it's not a whole podcast story, you know? For example, like when I was actually doing research for this episode, I actually came across one story that ballooned into an entire episode, so it's actually going to come in a couple episodes from now.
Did it helium balloon planet?
It's a helium balloon. It's an update on the UAP situation. It'll be really good. But the idea is that every so often, when I have enough juice for it, we'll do one of these Galactic Gazettes where we'll cover some stories that don't necessarily warrant a full episode, and also that they might be stretching the limits of the scope of this show, because these are new stories that have to do with like new things that have to do with UAPs and UFOs, but also pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, and sort of things unfolding at the moment. And today we have two stories. One is firmly not aliens. It is firmly in the realm of pseudo-history that is related to kind of current ongoing things. Ongoing as of early November when I got this story, but it's like mid-December now, so we'll see how relevant it is. But then we have another one that's a little bit more, in the zone that we're talking about. But anytime that in the future, if I come across a good news story that might not be fit, and it's probably not aliens episode because it's either too short or a little bit off topic or something, this is where it's going to fit.
Yeah, I like this idea. Tristan was pitched this idea to me. I like it a whole lot. One thing I want to mention is that I did ask ChatGPT to make that intro shorter, but it wasn't as funny, so we kept the long one. But the short one does refer to everyone, the listeners, as cosmic comrades. And could we just take that as our audience
cosmic comrades? Let's
name?
do it. Yeah.
What do you all, listener, what do you think? Are you happy to be a cosmic comrade? That would be cool.
Yeah, it's better than the other one, which would just be not aliens.
Yeah.
Hey, fellow not aliens.
Maybe we'll make little enamel pins that you wear that says cosmic comrade.
That has to be after Al the Space Potato, though. Space Potatoes
Al the Space Potato. Al the Space Potato. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We could just call our audience Space Potatoes. Do you think they would like that? It's a term of endearment.
Yeah, and if you know type situation.
All right, you're the listeners. You get to decide. Do you want to be called Cosmic Comrades, or do you want to be called Space Potatoes? I'm now partial to Space Potato. I think that is funny.
I like the nature of improv, just yes-anding.
Yeah. Plus, we didn't get it from ChatGPT.
Yeah,
so
true.
That all works. But hey, you're the audience. You get to decide. Those are the only two options. Do not go on Blue Sky or Twitter and suggest other ones. No, these are your two options. You get to decide, but I'm giving you the options. I don't want any of you smart people and clever people coming up with better names that's going to make these ones look silly. All right?
This is like part of parenting that they tell you about. Like, you give your kid the illusion of choice by being like, do you want to do A or do you want to do B? As like, they're like, you could choose either of these things.
They don't realize they're free to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
There are no laws against children.
Exactly. So we got two stories today. One has to do with, and this will feel very dated, I feel like, by the time it comes out, but has to do with the fact that America recently got a new Speaker of the House that has some interesting history when it comes to comments about history in general. And two, we've got a report from NASA on UFOs. So if you remember a few months ago, we talked about how NASA was getting involved in the UAP situation, and they had their committee meetings, they did their research, and they came out with a report. So those are the two things we're going to talk about today.
Gotcha. Well, I'm excited. I gotta dive into this first page of Galactic Gazette. I gotta flip open to page 1. What are the headlines?
Okay, so first one is the headline: Mike Johnson once blamed homosexuality for the fall of the Roman Empire.
Oh.
Yeah. I feel like this one I kind of feel bad about bringing to the show because I feel like it's an energy that is outside of the normal scope of the show. But it is a part where a very rare instance where pseudo-archaeology and like contemporary American politics are meeting each other.
Can I just say, if Mike Johnson was a fictional character's name, it would sound like a writer trying not very hard to disguise a Mike Hawk joke.
Oh, yeah.
It's Mike Johnson. Means penis. Do you get it? His penis.
His penis. Yeah. As a fellow Johnson, I have gotten this several times.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about your last name just now before I started making those jokes.
It's all right. Every person with Johnson as their last name is used to it. Okay, so here's the idea, is that the Speaker of the House, who is basically the closest thing that America has to a prime minister. I'm not sure about, let's see how much of a civics lesson I can give you guys. The Speaker of the House is essentially the head of the government in a way. He or she is the leader of the House of Representatives, the Congress people who are not senators. They're the ones who get reelected every 2 years, and they're the biggest body because they're roughly supposed to represent the population of different states. What it means, though, is that because unlike senators who get elected every 6 years and presidents who have elections every 4 years, they go up every 2 years, which means that their politics is a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, and it also typically means that they spend a lot of, I already feel like presidents spend a lot of time campaigning in the 4 years that they're around. 2 years, I feel like just don't stop.
Yeah, pretty much every politician does not stop campaigning anymore. And even if they're not campaigning for themselves, they're campaigning for other people. And by campaigning, they mean they're on the phone asking people for money. But either way, Mike, so if you probably remember in the news semi-recently, I think this is about a month ago now, that there was a shakeup in the Republican Party because right now, as of the end of the 2022 election, the Republicans hold on to the House of Representatives, but very, very lightly. They barely have control of the House of Representatives. And there's a internal division going on in the Republican Party between different ideological factions and dealing with the fact that one of their sitting Congress people seems to be just literally an open fraud who lied about virtually every aspect of his life. But in the midst of this, there was a sort of power play involved in a coup of the former Speaker of the House, and there were several days of chaos as the Republicans tried to scramble to put together a new one. And the result of all of that was a guy by the name of Mike Johnson. And this guy came into the situation extremely conservative, very troublesome in a lot of different ways, but in a way that specifically Tristan can talk about in a really meaningful way, is that he also is on the record
as
having
a fellow Johnson.
As a fellow Johnson. He has bad history opinions about things. So I'm going to give you a full little bit about everything. So Mike Johnson pledged to give House Republican members more power, aiming to decentralize power in the Speaker's office. In many ways, the Speaker of the House tends to hold a lot of power and centralized authority in the party. You might remember because a few years ago, this was centered in Nancy Pelosi, who you can imagine in the House wielded a lot of power in the Democratic Party. So this is, but Mike Johnson is trying to tamper that down a bit and make them a little bit more autonomous, which is mostly to settle the fact that Republicans currently are kind of tearing each other apart over basically how evil they can be to each other. There's different degrees of evil, and the ones who are like, I'm really evil, and the other ones who are like, I am evil branded, but I more just want to give rich people money in that kind of evil. So
I'm an evil that people can that's a little bit more palatable to some people.
It's lawful evil versus chaotic evil.
That's basically it.
Yeah. So Mike Johnson's a Republican from Louisiana and is now the current speaker, been elected based on a party line vote. And before entering politics, Johnson was a litigator for conservative causes, such as the Alliance Defending Freedom for 2 decades. And I'll get to that in a second. He served as a trustee for the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission and has been a vocal support of former President Donald Trump, who also very well may be president this time in 2 years. So who knows?
We'll see. Don't put that on me, Tristan. I don't want that.
It's not your fault. It's a political party that is in charge and seems to refuse to believe that it is in charge and doesn't do anything about the myriad problems that it's facing. But that's a different story. Okay, so first of all, and of course also this is going to be just like, content warning. This guy his whole thing is being ridiculously homophobic. And so we're gonna have to just deal with that shit. He's known for having hard right stances on issues like reproductive rights and same-sex marriage. You might know the reproductive rights aspect because it's the current thing that is basically causing Republicans to lose elections in droves because they were chasing this very unpopular issue for so long, and then they finally actually got their victory, and it turns out everybody hated it.
It turns out and we can't go down this rabbit hole, Tristan. We can't. We'll be here forever. But it is one of those things where, like, I even feel like a lot of Republican people don't like it because it's like, do you really want the government saying what you should do with your body? I feel like that's the party of small government, is the Republicans, as they always say.
True. Furthermore, it's also just a situation where, like, a lot of people who got the victory that they wanted then didn't realize the consequences of their own actions, and when they have to hear stories about, like, 8-year-old children being forced to give birth, it all of a sudden makes people realize, oh, these things exist for a reason. Okay. And I'm sure if anybody knows anything about American history or history in general, you'll know that some of the lengths people go to do a thing that people have been doing literally as long as there has been humans. Sometimes it's dangerous and bad, and people die. Anyways, that's...
Do them safely, is what we're saying.
Exactly.
Just so we're clear, we're not saying the procedure itself is bad. We're saying people have access. Let's see.
Yes, because in the past, things like Lysol were involved and people died. Just so you know, it's really wild if you look at 1920s Lysol ads where they kind of knew this and they used it in their marketing, and it's really fucking weird. Yeah. Every time I used to teach a U.S. history course, or I was a TA anyway, and every time we got to the 1920s, the teacher had this he did this little unit where we look at ads, and every time we got to the Lysol ad, the students would just be so confused because it's just like, why are these two women sharing the secret of disinfectant? And I'm like, shit's about to get dark, everybody.
Lysol can clean anything.
Yeah, oh god, we're being a little glib. It was a very dark period of American history. Anyways, Mike Johnson also serves on the House Armed Services Committee and the Judiciary Committee. He's rated the 27th most effective Republican member of Congress by the Center for Effective Lawmaking at Vanderbilt, which means that he has been involved with a lot of shit that got passed, and has been involved in high-profile constitutional law cases and is recognized as a leading defender of right to life, religious liberty, free speech, the Second Amendment, and free market. He's a Republican. Everybody.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, it just feels like he's doing he's the cookie cutter Republican.
Yeah, he's been a vocal opponent of same-sex marriage and has been associated with efforts to overturn the 2020 election, which was a fascist coup of the U.S. government that happened in 2020, as everyone remembers.
Yep.
And also has multiple links to anti-LGBTQ groups and has multiple controversial statements about homosexuality. One of which I'm going to talk about today because it breaches into pseudo-archaeology or pseudo-history. So in 2008, Mike Johnson was on a radio interview in Louisiana and wrote that and said in the interview that the Roman Empire fell due to, quote, rampant homosexual behavior. He thought that it was because of societal deprivation, loss of morals, interestingly enough, he said all those things, but then did not provide any evidence or detailed explanation to back his claim.
What? Mike Johnson? Are you sure? This guy seems like he's got stuff lined up. He's got his sources. He's got a whole page of citations. Are you sure? Mike Johnson.
Yeah, Mike Johnson. Okay. Sounds like a guy who sold you a bad car. Okay. So here's some things that we do need to mention about Rome and there's not only is he talking about something that is factually wrong, he is factually wrong in like a long-standing history of being wrong on this specific subject. So Rome, as we learned recently, men can't stop thinking about it.
Constantly thinking about Rome. That is the thing that really confirms that I am agender. Is when you brought up that like men then constantly think about Rome, and I'm like, I have never thought about Rome my entire life.
I know the timeline doesn't line up, but I'm just imagining we recorded that episode with Trey and we all talked about the Roman Empire, and then afterwards you just like went into like, who am I? What is
Who am I? What am I?
Yeah. Like that was the beginning of the spiral that led to you coming out. Yeah. Not true, but would be very funny if it was. If like,
would be funny.
The TikTok meme led to it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do have to mention is that in the Roman Empire, same-sex sex was actually tolerated and to a degree even accepted in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
But also no historian who has studied the fall of the Roman Empire would attribute it to to being a factor in the fall of the empire. It was no. This is
too much sex.
Yeah.
Too much bad sex. Fall of
penis was wrong place. Fall empire.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. It's all a timing issue.
Yeah.
Furthermore, after like talking about this feels like it should be redundant to say, but like LGBTQ plus advocates have expressed concern over Johnson's views. Kelly Robinson, who's the president of the Human Rights Campaign, which is an LGBTQ plus civil rights group, described Johnson as someone who doesn't hesitate to express his disdain for the community. Representative Mark Pocan, the chairman of the Congressional Equity Caucus, called Johnson an extreme Republican who has dedicated his career to attacking LGBTQI plus people and pushing an anti-equality agenda. So that's
Johnson?
Mike Johnson.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I will say, sadly, like I hate that I have to admit it, Mike Johnson is actually very appealing to say. It's fun to just say the word. It
sucks how much fun I'm having saying his name.
Mike Johnson, yeah.
Mike Johnson.
So let's get a little bit of history here. Mike Johnson was involved with Exodus International, which is a ex-gay organization promoting recovery from homosexuality, which is a thing that has been shown over and over again scientifically to have absolutely no efficacy and really is just a recipe for causing extreme mental distress in anybody who goes through it.
For clarity, that's like when you say ex-gay organization, you mean like they're trying to like make people not gay.
This is like conversion
not
therapy
that the
type
organization
stuff.
It's not that the organization itself was gay and is no longer gay. This is a former gay organization.
Yeah, this is the Michael Barbaro of organizations. No, it is ex-gay organizations in like sort of like conservative Christian circles is basically a term for like conversion therapy type things, and like people who there's a flavor of hardcore Christian who call themselves ex-gay because like they claim that they cured themselves.
They beat it. They overcame the gayness.
Yeah, it's not based in any sort of reality, and it is and things like conversion therapy have been linked to a lot of distress and also like horrible things, suicide, a lot of mental health struggles for a lot of people, and luckily is slowly getting banned in a lot of places. So
thank goodness.
Yeah. Johnson, though, who is a lawyer, provided legal advice to Exodus International and also was involved with something called the Day of Truth, which is an anti-gay event for teenagers countering the LGBTQ plus supportive Day of Silence, and has advocated for the criminalization of gay sex, opposed same-sex marriage, etc., etc. Let's look at his claims, though. So historians and LGBTQ plus advocates and skeptics have refuted his claim that the rampant homosexual behavior caused the fall of the Roman Empire. In a 2013 article titled "A Global Historical Survey: Does Accepting Homosexuality Lead to Societal Ruin?" looks at the assertion that accepting homosexuality led to the downfall of any civilization, and conducted a case study on the Greek/Hellenistic and as well as the Roman empires and Japan to examine historical impact on homosexuality, and showed conclusively that none of these things seem to be linked at all.
What? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I thought gay was bad, though.
Turns out not. Studies show.
Turns out gay?
Gay good.
It just is. It's pretty neutral across the board. It just is.
In 2011, there was an academic who named Roberto de Mattei, who was the vice president of the Italy Center of National Research, a devout Catholic, who made this claim, faced pressure to resign after doing it, after making similar claims. Emilio Gaba, who's an expert on ancient Roman history, stated that it's highly improbable that homosexuality led to the fall of the Roman Empire, and shows that like there's not only is there like a widespread academic consensus that this is not the case, but that there is a history of people trying to say that it is the case and being wrong about it, and usually being tied to people who are extremely religious, because the person who said it was like a devout Catholic.
Right.
So there's been, some strong reactions. Users that I looked up on Reddit showed that there's like a lot more complexity, and that this is like a grotesque oversimplification and also just a wrong claim. See here. So, combating misinformation and pseudo-history, especially when propagated by influential figures, is a good thing. Basically, the Roman Empire collapsed because of overstretching. First of all, its government systems became too corrupt because they were entering situations where there were Roman emperors who were serving for periods that lasted like days before getting assassinated. There was just the empire was just far too widespread and did not have the infrastructure or resources or communication to be able to even manage such a huge amount of territory. And furthermore, people at there was a strict hierarchical system in their society of people who were, of Rome versus not of Rome. There was a unsustainable system of constant invasions in order to secure slaves for a slave-based economy that also it became too dependent on, in which case it got into this dangerous cycle of invading new places to get more slaves, but then taking more territory that they then did not have the resources to manage. And you can see that eventually it kind of just fell apart from within, and groups that were from outside of Rome, like the Visigoths and the Goths and the other non-Roman groups that lived in
Goths.
Europe.
All the different kinds of Goths
Eventually started to realize that, oh shit, Rome has like absolutely no, like they aren't able to maintain their borderlands or anything like that, did massive invasions, and Rome eventually fell several times before collapsing basically in the early Middle Ages.
Rome fell on its knees.
To an extent, though.
Because it's gay.
Yeah. The other argument you can make is that Rome didn't necessarily collapse because that was just in the West. Rome continued to exist in Turkey and Greece all the way until the 1400s, in which case, by that point, by the time they were collapsing, they were very Christian and were not tolerant of gayness at all.
No.
So that's...
Well,
yeah.
I liked it before when...
Yeah, it's a interesting little like it shows that there's been there's a whole kind of argument that people would say about how homosexuality is some sort of like sometimes you hear this is a Western phenomenon, or it's like a sort of like modern phenomenon, like a cosmopolitan thing, but it is like a phenomenon that has been shown not only in humans but throughout human history in various civilizations for a very long time, and the only reason why it sticks out in any way today or has stigma today is because the dominant religious traditions on Earth today kind of stem from a very homophobic sort of set of doctrines.
Yeah.
And so when that is sort of the paradigm that is in control of most of the world, that just is sort of what comes out of it.
Yeah. Wait, so you're saying Mike Johnson
got this wrong, and that there's
Mike Johnson?
All right. So, and there was a reason why I brought this up, because some people would be like, why the hell are you talking about this on a podcast about UFOs and shit?
Well, we talk about pseudo-history.
Yeah.
This is pseudo-history.
Yeah, I do think, though, that it's important to combat misinformation, especially when influential figures are pushing stuff like this.
Yes.
Misinformation like this can be far-reaching. It can then impact public perceptions, policy decisions, and so social cohesion, because being wrong doesn't necessarily mean that it's ineffectual, and that wrong ideas can still proliferate in society. If anything, sometimes they proliferate faster in society and can become a social truth rather than an actual truth, just through cultural things. So I looked up how do we kind of fight stuff like this, and one of the things that I came across that I feel like we should bring into parlance more as a thing that we can do. This was brought up by the archaeological archaeological society or the archaeological community. So they've talked about how a lot of times there's like archaeologists who have been hesitant to publish their data because of like they know that it's going to get latched onto by cranks. And archaeologists already are like well aware that they have to deal with cranks as like a big part of their work. So they've started moving into something that they're calling pre-bunking, which is that they try to inoculate information or individuals against misinformation before they even encounter it. And so even if something is not widespread, they like if they think it will be misinterpreted, they will address the potential for misinformation in the same thing so that they can kind of get ahead of the story before, because a lot of times they're reacting to pseudo-archaeology, but if they can sort of see where the pseudo-archaeology is coming from and cut it off before it happens. Yeah.
That's good. I like that, because I do feel like a lot of the times, I mean, that's a lot of, most of this pod reacts to history, pseudoscience, that sort of stuff, which is hard to do when there have been decades. So I like this idea of being a little bit more preemptive by being like, we see the potential of this thing spreading, you know, this misinformation spread, get to right now.
Exactly. Like yeah. And I mean, like as somebody who just made a video on the Kennedy assassination, who had to wade through like 60 years of conspiracy theories and like got a lot of flack because I did not address like the literal decades of nonsense that have been piled up over the years. And I kind of did like a first principles approach that, like it is a hard thing. Like once it gets established, it's harder to deal with. So this is like a thing that a lot of archaeologists are starting to push now, where archaeologists should encourage critical reflection on the veracity of claims and also to be more proactive on social media platforms, even encouraging like making partnerships with different social media platforms in order to control the spread of pseudo-archaeology and misinformation. So that is like a thing that people are starting to look at.
Me as the time traveling shooter in the grassy knoll, like that's who I am. I feel like the spread of misinformation really has not captured me very well. People sort of have forgotten my name, so I feel like we should have been more proactive.
Yeah.
So in a similar vein, I'm with you about that.
For sure. Ways to do this involve fact-checking and sharing the truth on social media platforms, which have been shown to help in controlling misinformation. But the volume of fabricated content poses a challenge for the effectiveness of these kind of corrective approaches. So getting ahead of it before it proliferates is a smart idea. And also that they need to like just kind of correcting the record, as we saw in the Trump administration, just like fact-checking and correcting when popular and influential figures say things that are wrong don't work very well. And
doesn't work.
What does work is getting involved with the platforms themselves to develop tools and techniques to mitigate the information. Like, for example, Reddit was a fucking cesspool until like after the January 6th, I think it was, where they like they just nuked a whole bunch of really bad subreddits. And there's like studies showing that like the amount of like hate speech went down, the amount of like horrible stuff went down. And I would also say it's even more effective in various other ways. But like when a bunch of influential like neo-Nazis and fascists got kicked off of Twitter, we saw like a decrease in sort of the public ingestion of far-right ideas. And people will say like, well, they just left and they went to Telegram. And it's like, yeah, but like no one's on Telegram. Like kicking people off of big popular platforms does work really well.
It does.
And that basically we need to kind of have that kind of stuff involved instead of like just being like the whole idea that the marketplace of ideas concept, basically that you can like, if you just show up with the good idea will win out over the bad idea, doesn't seem to be true.
Doesn't seem to be true. I think the idea that gets the most attention is usually wins out. I also think, I mean, this is another tangent, but I also think politicians say something they know is factually correct because they know that people will spend time correcting that really easy thing rather than engaging in the bigger point of what he's saying. So people are like, well, that's not really the downfall of societies, when the bigger point is he's basically just doing, he's saying the thing that everyone's already said, like all the people have already saying bad. Don't engage with him in that. But I think it's still useful to both. But I do think there's a part of me that's like, sometimes I think they're wrong.
I will say this taps into a legacy, but I'll point out that psychological research has shown that things like pre-bunking, like if you can get to a person with the good idea before they can get to the bad idea, the fact that you got to them first seems to inoculate people against misinformation and enhance their ability to, like, if you teach people before they kind of get into bad news and bad information, how to determine what is real and what is fake, that actually helps quite a bit. And so that's why like things like platform moderation are important for maintaining a stable society, and why maybe that should be one of the things that we look towards for how to fix a lot of problems we're having. The other thing, too, is that we have to realize that misinformation also tends to flourish in situations where there's not a lot of context. Uncertainty is high, and there's an anxiety or a scarcity of reliable information, which leads to terrible consequences, which shows that there probably needs to be like more, like this is like the reason why like so many conspiracy theories thrived in areas where the government was not being transparent, and that more transparency from people in authority would result in less conspiracy theories, because when people don't know something, we really don't like not knowing things, and we tend to very quickly fill in that not knowing with like just bullshit, and then it gets really popular. Like the big one I can think of was not last weekend but the weekend before, the president of OpenAI, the ChatGPT there, or the CEO got fired, and they gave very vague and cryptic ideas as to what happened, and now there's like 1,001 different explanations as to like what happened, and now he's back anyway. But like either way, like everyone was talking, like there were things going from the fact that like he had done some massive crime, that it was going to be like what's it called, Sam Bankman-Fried level amounts of like fraud, to like that like the researchers had developed a new AI that was so powerful that they like fired Sam Altman before he could like commercialize it, because it was like general artificial intelligence or something. And so like there was like a whole range of just absolute like nonsense, and the reason is because people don't like saying that like the answer to like why that guy got fired at the moment is just not publicly available. That people trust me, if a journalist could find out the answer, they would, but unfortunately, you know, good journalists stake their reputation on saying things that are correct.
All right.
So
that's Mike Johnson.
Yeah, he it shows. So it's like the thing that I wanted to kind of get into is that this is part of a project to dehumanize and attack LGBTQ plus people, and this specific idea that like homosexuality was tied to the fall of the Roman Empire is not new, and it has been said often in many times by people who have this sort of historical vision of decadence and collapse of society. It's very much linked to fascist ideologies. The main people who talked about it was Nazi Germany, which persecuted their gay population in order to prevent this from happening to their own society. They thought that they were dangerously nonconformist and a threat to the traditional family values, which led to like the collapse of Rome or whatever made up shit they had. And so it's also important to state that this is wrong, because it is a project, a pseudo-historical belief that is out of line with evidence and is used specifically to hurt a group of people who are marginalized and experiencing a lot of discrimination today.
Yeah.
All right, that story was...
it's easy to point at just like one thing. Be like, how did this empire fall? Gabe, don't ask any follow questions.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say.
All right, we're 40 minutes in with story 1 over.
Yeah.
How's story 2?
All right, so NASA put together a report on UFOs. So think about it this way. NASA has basically put together a project to try and explain away what's going on with all of these UAPs. As you guys know, NASA is the government agency at the forefront of aeronautics and space research, so they deal with things in space and in the sky. So the UAP investigation was definitely a thing that they would get involved with. And they commissioned an independent study to scientifically analyze events in the sky that are unidentified, known as UAPs, to figure out if they're man-made objects, if they're aliens, if they're whatever these things are. Like
unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah. The current administrator of NASA who pushed behind this is Bill Nelson, who announced the creation of this aerial phenomenon research position and showed a commitment to UAP research. The director who was in charge of this was Mark McInerney, who has experience with liaising with the Department of Defense to work on this, because this is obviously a project they're doing with the DoD, because we've talked about how the DoD is super involved in UAP research right now to try and figure out what's going on, because it's, you know, non-American things in American airspace, which seems to be the Department of Defense's main interest.
That's what they do.
Yeah. So what they did is they put together NASA's Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Independent Study Team, or UAPIST, as an expert panel. Yeah, UAPIST, UAPIST.
You man,
UAPIST.
you a pissed.
You a pissed.
You pissed. That's if I discover that these are not aliens, I'm a be pissed. And you a
There you go.
I'm trying to make something work.
I appreciate the effort. It was good. So to do this, they put together a team of 16 multidisciplinary experts to delve into the mystery. It included astronomers, oceanographers, computer scientists, journalists, and notable members were people like David Spergel and Anna Maria Beria. So I'll try to get into a few of these people that they put in here. One was Karen St. Germain, who's the director of NASA's Earth Science Division. So she was a big part of establishing this as a subcommittee. Daniel Evans, who is the Deputy Associate Administrator for Research at NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Then there's Nicola Fox, who is the Administrator of the Science Mission Directorate at NASA, and strategically appointed Mark McInerney, highlighting the importance of the leadership there. And Thomas Zurbuchen, who is the Associate Administrator of the Science Mission Directorate at NASA, and has a lot of data research and such background. So they wanted to figure out the different things, and here's what they did. So June 9th, 2022, they announced the putting together of this team to study and enhance the scientific understanding of UAPs. They have their first meeting on May 31st, 2023. They have their first public meeting. And they discuss that their plan is their plans and methodologies and data that they're collecting to try and understand things. Then in September 14th, they published their final report, offering recommendations for their things. So simultaneously, they did a simultaneous media briefing by NASA to discuss their findings. The report highlights potential use of advanced technology and artificial intelligence in investigating UAPs. And then that was when they announced that Mark McInerney was going to be the new director of UAP research, which would make a more sort of permanent research aspect to this thing. The team has now been dissolved after the final report was put out, and so the UAPISTs.
That feels painful. Why would they dissolve them? They're humans.
Drop them in acid.
They can live lives after this.
It's true. They were just created for one purpose, which was to research UAPs, and then
All right, we're done with you. You are dissolved.
Yeah, God. The tenure it's like they're Tyranids or something.
Like they're handing in the final report with their hands shaking because they know what it means that they're done. They're just like, all right, there's our report, and then like, thank you very much. Acid.
Could we have done something a little bit less acidy? So they have thought about, like, some of the recommendations included deploying advanced satellites to study these, implementing AI systems to study the data to look for answers, and using just like the other word for AI, which is machine learning, for enhanced data collection and analysis of these things. So the study was released. It tried to guide NASA on future data collection and understand the nature and origin of UAPs. And let's see. So the way that it did it is it tried to take unclassified data from civilian government agencies, commercial sources, and other data, and look at it to try and find out what was going on. They found that their recommendations were very funny, and this is always a recommendation I see in any like final report of a big committee. They suggested that NASA would be a very important organization in governmental efforts to understand UAPs. So they got together and agreed that our organization is very important for doing this thing.
Hey, it took a whole team of us, but we finally came to the conclusion that NASA could be.
Yeah. It's kind of like whenever you go to an academic conference and one of the conclusions in like one of the deep conversations is that we need to have a conversation about something. And it's like, thanks. I thought we were supposed to be doing that, but okay. We've all concluded that this is a thing we should talk about. Cool.
All right. Let's, this is our meeting about how we need to have more meetings.
Exactly. There's a lot of like report talk in the report. They recommended that NASA use open source resources and technology and data analysis partnerships, and also Earth observing assets, i.e. like satellites too. They basically concluded that they need better data to get an answer to some of these things. So they proposed a bunch of programs for how they can get more data. But the problem is that they found they also realized they had limitations because they had too much data to deal with, but not enough data to get an answer. And that's why they started to say that like to answer this, we're probably going to need to develop some sort of machine learning tool or some sort of artificial intelligence program in order to, because that's what AI is really good for, is looking at a huge data data set and finding the connections that a human being is just not capable of finding themselves.
Right.
That's why like you end up with like I don't know if you've seen some of the studies from the last year, but like we had like AI has been implemented in a bunch of situations where that was the exact problem we were dealing with, and has solved things that we thought were going to take forever to figure out. Like the big one that was protein folding. So if anyone doesn't know about how this works, is that like most of the machinery in the body that the DNA makes is made by them taking strands of protein and folding them through like a different mechanism, and basically making like an origami organic machine that then does all the things that it's supposed to do in the sort of cell. And we had to figure out like, how do we study the way that these things fold, because it's a very complex system and like we don't really have a great way of doing it. And they've tried so many different things. They tried making a game at one point, so there you could do like a citizen science thing, so people could just play this game and solve the puzzles on how these different proteins work out, and just like different types of models that were very computationally heavy. This was like a very like thought to be intractable problem, or at least a very complicated problem, because the amount of things that these proteins can be folded into is virtually infinite, and can be used to make all sorts of different genetic, like all sorts of parts of how life works at like the sort of really, really small level. But also there's a lot of thought that if we could figure out how to intentionally make our own version of these kinds of origami, we could cure a lot of diseases, and we could do a lot of interesting stuff with like, you know, basically manipulating microbiology for technology, because like in like nanotech, like making things at a very, very small scale is difficult. And so the idea that you could make like a machine out of proteins could be really useful. And there's a lot of diseases linked to it, like rabies, for example, or rabies and like what's that disease called? Mad cow disease. These are prionic disorders, and a prion is a protein that has been misfolded and has turned into a malicious purpose. And we don't really have a lot of great solutions for how to deal with that. I think don't like quote me on this. This might end up in a corrections bit, but I also think that there's some theories that misfolded proteins might be created when we experience like head trauma, like when we experience like concussions, and they create things called tau proteins or something. And people have I had a friend, and I don't know, he was doing the research and I don't know what conclusion they came to, but he was suspicious that these misfolded proteins in the brain might be like one of the contributors towards Alzheimer's. So there's like understanding how proteins fold can solve a bunch of things. So this was like a huge thing. Anyways, the whole thing is to say is that a paper came out earlier this year where an AI system was able to solve every single one of them.
Awesome.
And they were able to identify every single protein, which was like a thing that like it was just a thing we thought was never going to be able to get done in like a speedy manner, and they did it in like one go.
And AI was able to write us a little funny little intro.
It's true. It can do both those things. So like it was a fascinating push forward, and also just like there's a lot of things like that in the future that could very well, especially for dealing with like issues with big data like this. AI, really useful technology, absurdly useful technology. So the next few years are going to be very, very interesting to watch, and also very interesting for how society is going to exist alongside it.
Yes. I feel like Tristan and I have had many conversations off mic about our thoughts about AI, and I feel like Tristan is very much in the camp of like, you're very pro, like, let's do all the AI.
Yeah, I'm like, it exists and it's going to solve a lot of problems, and our society is not ready for all the things it's going to do, and we need to put things in place to make sure that it doesn't result in like removing a whole lot of work and making a whole lot of people unemployed and miserable.
That's my biggest thing is I'm mostly hesitant around generative AI, and I specifically want to make sure that there's some legislation that people aren't being deep faked, their voices saying things they never said, all that stuff. Yeah,
we definitely need laws in that regard, and we're going to need to rethink the way we do economics and stuff like that. Like Canada's, I don't know if you saw this, Canada's right now, the Senate is currently mulling over the idea of putting in a basic income program in the country. So that'll be one way to address it. Yeah. So here's the main things that they came out of. Like, this is the thing they talked about as challenges. There's a lack of consistent, detailed, and curated observations. So the data they did have was sort of messy. And so they weren't able to make a lot of scientific conclusions, but they also concluded that there is no evidence here that points towards extraterrestrial life. There's nothing that is so unexplainable that there's no terrestrial theory that can explain it. experiment. There are a lot of things that are unexplained because they couldn't definitively find an answer, but there's nothing that's so out there and undefinable that aliens would be the only solution.
Gotcha. So there's definitely stuff we don't know, but the theories or like the speculation is more so just like, but there are more reasonable explanations.
Exactly. And that is true, like when we talked about the DoD's UAP task force like report, they also have pointed out that like the vast majority of UAP reports are very easy to explain. There's just a handful of them that don't have a solid answer. They have several guesses, and until they are certain, they're going to keep investigating, because while these might be like, you know, optical illusions or misuse of new technologies or something like that, they're looking for like, is this a Russian drone? Is this like, is this an enemy is this an enemy that has like developed a new form of surveillance or drone technology that we haven't yet and we need to be aware of? And so that's why they're interested in that kind of stuff. They also, though, so as they also did this, and I think this is kind of important too, they appointed a new director for UAP research, obviously, and they're going to do this on a more permanent basis. Then they also emphasize that this is important because they need to reduce the stigma surrounding UAP reporting. As we talked about, that is like a major thing in the culture of NASA, but also in the military, that people were afraid to report seeing these things because it could damage their career and make people like wouldn't take them seriously. So that's another big part of why.
Like if there genuinely is something like a UAP, even if you don't suspect that think that it's some sort of spy craft, what have people there's a stigma against reporting because people are being like, oh, look at this, found a UFO. It's like, no, but it really it literally is an unified flight. I don't know what it was, but I saw it, but I'm not, you know.
Yeah. So the rebrand to UAP was part of that, and it's an important part of like how we do the next, like as the government is going to take UAP more seriously, this is like why they're doing this, is they want it's not that they think there's aliens, it's that they want to reduce the stigma because people do see unexplained things in the skies and we don't necessarily know what all of them are, and it would be important for us to figure out what they are without instantly going to aliens.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this in our UAP episode, but I prefer the term UAP just because it feels more broad and more accurate in that way. Like if you see something in the sky, it might be an object or it could be lights, right? So phenomenon makes more sense than object. We don't know if it's literally flying, but it's in the air, so aerial. It just feels like
you text your girl at 4 a.m. and write UAP.
Yeah. Hey, UAP. Yeah, but it just feels like a more accurate term for a broader range of stuff. Feels more official, unidentified.
Exactly. The other thing too is that the report also emphasized that going forward, they're going to have a dedication to keeping their first of all, their study is publicly available. You can read the whole study and all the work they did, and also that they are committed to making sure that as they move forward in studying UAPs, that they're going to do so in a transparent and a transparent matter. And because they're going to like put like data out and everything like that, that means that there's a lot of room for other scientists to look at it and kind of research the data into themselves. And as I talked about with a sort of like earlier in the last story with the sort of pre-bunking, this gives them like this creates the space for them to open up discussion and hopefully get ahead of like, you know, the alien people, because if they're not transparent about it, the UFO, like, you know, the cranks will dominate the narrative. And this is a way that they can kind of get ahead of that by saying, look, all the data is free. You can look at it. You can see what we saw and find the conclusions that we found. And if people find different conclusions or can explain it, like various different scientists or grad students who want to use it to write their next study or whatever, they can. And that is amazing. Like open science is a thing that is a major problem in academia. There's a whole thing about how like developments and data and stuff like that is all being kept behind paywalls and like, and, you know, institutional walls and stuff like that. And it's leading to science not progressing as fast as it could, because, you know, if you know, to read the latest in what's going on in biology, you either have to belong to a university that is subscribed to the journal, or you have to pay like $500 an issue to read like the articles. Like it's prohibitive. And this would more open science, and it also allows you to have more replication. Like I don't know how much you know about this kind of stuff, but like science, especially the most, because my wife was a social psychologist. There was a massive issue in social psychology where, because people weren't like being transparent with their data, and because of the sort of nature of how you make it in academia by publishing lots of articles and making like a lot of positive conclusions, it was resulting in people producing a lot of studies about experiments they did that then when replicated couldn't happen. And so like a whole bunch of work had to be thrown out because it was either the experiment they did could not be replicated by other labs, or it just or it was based heavily on that data. And that resulted in a bunch of stuff. There was even another issue in, I think it was over in Hamilton, over at McMaster, where there was this spider biologist who faked data for years and really disrupted a lot of people's careers when it all came out. Angela Collier made a video about it.
Hey.
I'm way too big of a fan of her. But that's the thing. Science, open science and transparent data is a good thing for science in general. So yeah, do more of that.
More of it. Do it.
Yeah. What you should also do more of is going to Probs Not Aliens on either Twitter or Blue Sky and telling us about whether you want to be a space potato or a stellar comrade? Cosmic comrade.
Stellar's good though. Stellar's cool too. Comrade? Like a stellar.
It's not alliterative though.
Maybe you're a stellar space potato. I don't know.
Stellar space potato?
Let us know. And another thing you can let us know is if we made your Spotify Wrapped. That happened yesterday, I think, as of the time.
Best day of the year.
Yeah, as of the time we're recording this. That's our favorite day of the year because so many people reach out, listen to this podcast on Spotify and are like, you're my top podcast, you're in my top 5 podcasts, anything. It just means the world to us because we get to actually see all the, we've got numbers on our side. We've got this amount of downloads, this amount of listens, but getting able to see specific people being like, I listened to your podcast this amount of time. Somebody listened to 30,000 hours of our podcast or something like that.
Yeah, they would have had to listen to there's somebody who I think had to have listened to the entire show several times to get
They're in the 0.01, the top 0.01%, 0.01% of the listeners. That is absolutely bonkers that someone was able to thank you for doing. Means a lot to us. And you can also support this show by supporting us over on Nebula. You can listen to episodes a week early on Nebula. You just go to nebula.tv/probably not alien. It really does help us out more than you know.
Before we get to away from the social medias, Ivan Ayres gave me a whole bunch of free Blue Sky codes to give away to some listeners. So I'm gonna do since we got a dearth, I'm gonna do 2.
You can do 2. We can also copy paste them in the description of this episode. Do a whole bunch, but
the only time I worry about is that if you put it in text that someone's gonna scrape it, and because I imagine people who are still trying to scrape Blue Sky
You're
codes.
right. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna read them off.
Yeah. So so all of them start with BSKY-social- and then first one is NQPTD-WS3WX, and then the second one is FBRMI-DORN5. I hope to see you on Blue Sky. Say hello if you manage to snag one of those 2 codes.
Say hello to your fellow space.
Yeah.
I'm leaning hard into Space Potato. I think that's so much better.
It's pretty nice. Scott, if I wanted to find out whether or not Lex Luthor got kryptonite cancer, where would I go?
Oh boy.
For that
was before I was bald, I think. So what a reckoning that was for me to be like, why is Lex?
Did you get kryptonite cancer?
No, I didn't do that. See, I can't even make the joke because it feels weird to even pretend that I had cancer.
Fair.
No, I just don't have good hair, so I shave it all off. You're to style. You have none of it. But you can go to my YouTube channel, Nerdsync, NERDSYNC. That's where I make videos about comics and superhero and cartoons. I'm working on a video right now about the Scott Pilgrim anime. It's so good. I don't know if you've seen it.
I'm looking forward to watching it. It's on my list.
And another thing that Emily and I did for the end of year is went into the wacky world of licensed cooks. So we made a holiday feast where every item was something from a different officially licensed cookbook from Scooby-Doo.
I have
Marvel.
I hate them so much.
Yeah.
I don't I never. It's the 2 things, and I don't they're such cheap cash grabs, and I hate because they're never there's the licensed cookbook or the licensed cocktail book, and all of the things are not things seen in the show. Nope. They're not diegetic or anything. They're just what if we took a regular ass recipe and just called it something?
Can I tell you the coolest, the best one that we found was a Bob Ross recipe book, but it was not the one that people know. There's one currently on shelves. I have that one. We didn't look into it at all. We instead got a Bob Ross cookbook that is filled. It's like a church cookbook. I don't know if you're familiar with. They're filled with recipes of from actual. Each recipe is from a different person. They're this is my recipe that I make. family. It's a Bob Ross cookbook like that, and all of the people are Bob Ross certified paint instructors, and they're like, this is the recipe that I make for my, and like,
that's
it
cute.
is cute, right? It's the best. That one is the only one that didn't feel like a cash grab. Like I said, there's another Bob Ross one that's currently on the shelves that does feel like cash, but this one comes from like the 80s or 90s or something. Like, it feels like a it's really cute. Anyway, so we're working on a video about that, but that's me. Tristan, you have other videos and stuff that you make online. Where can people find more of your stuff?
It's true. My name is you guys know my name. I have a YouTube channel called Step Back that I talk about. I essentially take things going on in the world and try to, with history and just my ability, just my debunking and my research skills, try to explain what the fuck's going on. My most recent video that just came out as of the release of this episode, and by just came out I mean like a week or so ago, is on the land back movement. Very important video to me, and stuff to do with indigenous land sovereignty, and thumbs up about how millions of acres are being won back by indigenous nations across Canada and the US to right the wrongs of colonization. And it meant a lot to me, and I worked really hard on this, struggled a lot to make it like interesting but also not generic enough. I'd hit this thing because nobody recognized what land back was, but also everyone knows about indigenous land theft. So I had to be like, how do I make this interesting enough that like a person who's never heard of land back will come in, but also not vague enough so that it's just like colonization bad. And so I don't know. I'm very excited about it. But you know what I'm also very excited about is if you were to go to nebula.tv/probably-not-aliens and sign up for Nebula via that link, you would get episodes early. Yes. You could have listened to this episode last week.
Could have.
And also, you would also get to enjoy the fact that you're supporting tons of really amazing creators like the two of us, but also lots of, I'm trying to think of
I don't know if we pitched this enough. I mean, I know we've got those little pre-rolls, but like when you go to nebula.tv/probably-not-aliens and you sign up, you're not just getting access to this podcast, you're getting access to everything that Nebula has to offer, which has like tons of cool shows and things. I made a class on how I make my videos, if anyone wants to watch that. It was really fun to make.
Abigail Thorne has a play.
Abigail Thorne has a play and is working on a movie for next year.
Oh, yeah. Dracula's ex-girlfriend. Yeah. There's also Jesse Gender's movie Identities coming out. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's happening on Nebula, and if you sign up, you not only get episodes early, but you are directly supporting us, and you are going to get access to all of that amazing stuff. Yes. It's really cool to watch the platform turn into something really cool. There's like actual premieres and stuff happening.
Yeah, it's really cool gay over. And if you like gay stuff, hold on, don't tell Mike Johnson, but it is super gay.
Don't tell LG.
Don't tell LG.
Don't tell LG.
Don't tell Mike Johnson. It is super gay over on Nebula, and like I'm cool with it. I like it a lot, and I think maybe you'll like it a lot, and you'll resonate with it. Don't tell LG. Don't tell Mike Johnson. If you don't understand the LG thing, don't worry about it. It's complicated. Don't tell Mike Johnson.
Yeah. But who you should tell is everybody that you know to listen to this podcast, because podcasts grow through word of mouth. Next year, we're going to be rummaging with the fact that YouTube is going to start a podcasting platform, and there might be more algorithmic recommendations and stuff, but podcasts are still kind of like a word of mouth thing. And if you word your mouth, you help the show, and a lot of you have, and it has been really great to see. And the place that you can send them is probsnotaliens.com, which is a great place where you can get links to literally whatever way that you want to ingest podcasts.
I wonder if I can put a poll up on that website to see what people would want versus the cosmic comrades or the space potatoes. I'll see. Maybe not, but just let us know. Let us know your thoughts on all that. But yeah, that's got all the links to where you can listen to the show. And it's great. Thank you to everyone who writes reviews of this show on Apple Podcasts, leaves us feedback on Spotify. And again, thanks for all the Spotify Wrapped shout outs. That's awesome.
They make us feel very good. I literally wrote to Scott when Spotify Wrapped came out yesterday, like, Scott, Spotify Wrapped's out.
If you listen to podcasts on, there's an app called Pocket Casts. That's what I use to listen to podcasts. They have a similar thing right now where you go back, they'll show you your year in podcasts specifically. So if we make your list there, let us know.
I didn't know we both used that.
Do what?
I also use Pocket Casts.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good app. It's better than Apple's native one. I'll tell you that much.
Better than Spotify. No, it's fine. If you use Spotify,
it's
awesome.
fine.
Just use whatever you want that you enjoy listening to podcasts.
I'm a little frustrated seeing Joe Rogan still at the top of the pocket. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah. But that is all for today. So until next time.
My name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. Probable LGBTQ+.
Whoa! Bold statement.
Mike Johnson.
Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson?
Mike Johnson? Let's just get 4 more Mike Johnsons.
Can we get a couple more Mike
Johnson?
Johnsons in here just for the edit? Mike Johnson? Mike Johnson.
Mike Johnson.
You know, it's like how people are like, an actor is like, you can say the I love you in so many different ways, and it means the context means different things. It's that way with Mike Johnson. Like Johnson. Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson?